All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Run the Damn Ball. This is your host, Daniel Magnuson. We talk Nebraska football, college football, a little bit everything in between. So today, it's a week later after I posted my last video, and I decided maybe it's a little bit early, but I want to do my predictions for the 2024 Nebraska football season. I was gonna wait a little bit longer to do this video, but I don't think Nebraska is gonna add any more players really in the portal. Maybe a couple through the summer, but probably not a ton. And especially with the transfer portal like officially, being closed as of last week, we're really not going to see much more movement until the season. I guess the next portal window, which might be around the time the season starts. So, yeah, here we go. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to predict each game for Nebraska. They got 12 on the schedule as usual, and what I think is going to happen for each game. I'll also give some predictions for how I think some other teams will do, just because that adds context to how I think Nebraska will do, just with how good certain opponents will be. And I'll give some predictions for the Big Ten. I may just do a separate Big Ten video at some point this summer. From what we saw from the spring game, we kind of know mostly what we have, roster wise. And in the last video I did, I talked about kind of the starters and other contributors I thought we were going to have on the team based upon the spring game. So we'll just go ahead and jump into it. So obviously Nebraska has a easier. If you've seen their schedule, they have an easier start to the season they've had in a while. They got UTEP first game of the year. They have 4 home games to start, and they don't play a tough team in the first 7 games. If you are honest with yourself, obviously Nebraska hasn't been so great in recent history of college football, so we really can't be overly confident, but I'm a little bit biased. I'm pretty confident with how we can start the season. But we'll go ahead and get into it. First game of the season, UTEP at home, August 31st, Saturday. Can't wait for that weekend anyway. UTEP has a first-year head coach. Last year they went 3-9 in the Conference USA. This is not a good football team, and Dylan Raiola will be the starter, as I have said before. We're winning that game. Okay, I'm not going to play around here. We're winning this game. Okay, yeah. Okay, Nebraska 1-0. Finally, a 1-0 start for the first time since like 2019 because of COVID and us being awful at football in week 1 against the Big Ten opponents. So thank God. 1-0, baby, going into week 2. This game is look, I'm just gonna be honest. The Colorado game is the biggest game of the season for Nebraska. And I'm not trying to put pressure on the team. I'm not trying to um, make it bigger than it is. It doesn't count towards their ability to play for a Big Ten title or not, which I'll get into my opinions on that in the Big Ten schedule when we get to that. But after last year being embarrassed and fumbling all over the place against Colorado, this team hasn't won a non-conference road game that was a Power 4/Power 5 game since, hold on. They beat Oregon in 2016, and that was a home game. But they haven't won a road game that was a non-conference Power 4/Power 5 game since, oh my gosh. It's been a long time. I I have to go back in time. Hold on. 2010. They beat Washington in Seattle in 2010. That's the last time they won a road conference or non-conference game that mattered. Not a bowl game, like a road game in September that mattered. Because they've lost to Oklahoma every time. They lost to Colorado. They lost to Oregon. I know we have less of these games now because we only have 3 non-conference, and they have to, make sure they have 7 home games every year. But it's been a long time since they won a big road game early in the season that actually mattered. It's been so long, man. We've been bad. We lost the last 3 to Colorado. All 3 times, those were not good Colorado teams. Like those, none of those Colorado teams went to a bowl. Colorado has 1 winning season since like 2003. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, that's crazy. This is just a bad football program. And we are also bad. Last time I saw Nebraska go to a bowl, I was 17 years old. I am now 25. What the hell is even that? Anyway, so obviously I'm going to talk about Colorado now. I had to go on a little rant there of how frustrated we've been, but Shadur's awesome in terms of a player on the field. If he tries to freestyle rap, that is trash. I'm sorry if you ever witnessed that on Twitter. That was so cringe. He can't rap. Anyway, but on the field, like that guy's gonna go to the NFL. He has a cannon. And look, every running back they had that mattered transferred out. I know they gave Charlie Offerdahl, their second string walk-on running back, a scholarship. That's probably just all theater because they just have no one else at running back right now. Um, I don't even know who their starter is going to be. I have to look at their roster, but they got a lot of receivers that are good. They're bringing in some transfers. Obviously, they have Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, and they got some other good guys who can just fly around the field. Their whole offense, they're just an AAU basketball team on grass, is what they are. Okay, they have had like 200 guys on that team in the last 600 days, if not more, and they just are cycling in and out. Colorado football is a fascinating thing to witness from a just college football fan perspective. I think they're interesting. I even was rooting for Dion last year. Besides the Nebraska game, I actually was rooting for him. But at the end of the day, I've seen kind of how he treats guys who have left his program on Twitter and stuff. I mean, you can look into it on your own. The dude he's something. Dion's something. Like, part of me enjoys how funny he is, and part of me is like, dang, he's kind of an asshole. Anyway, obviously, I mean, Nebraska needs this game so bad. They haven't won a non-conference game that has mattered since, what was it, 2016 Oregon? That's so long ago. Obama was still our president in America. Like, anyway, sorry. I'd love to make those stupid facts, but they need this game so bad. They haven't won a rivalry game besides the Iowa game when Mickey was coach 2 years ago. They haven't won a rivalry game in so long. Like, they need this so bad for momentum. And if we lose, we are going to get dragged on Twitter again by all the college football casuals who just love to make fun of Nebraska because, well, we're easy to make fun of because we haven't done anything and we got this big fan base that's just sitting here like, so we are the Will Smith meme, just standing in the middle of like an empty room, just taking L's left and right. Like, we need this Colorado win so bad for the team morale, for the momentum going into the season. Like, if we lose to this Colorado team that went 4-8 last year or whatever they did last year, then I don't know if we can feel confident about those first four conference games I'm about to get into. Like, they have to win that game. And so, anyway, I know I just went on like a 5-minute rant about how important it is they win the Colorado game for momentum and the city of Lincoln's sanity, just everything with the program. I mean, we are the opposite of Colorado in a lot of ways. We want to bring in freshmen, develop them for 4 to 5 years. Colorado brought in like 6 total freshmen this right now. Like, their freshman class they're bringing in is 6 guys. They're all transfers. That's just a totally different program. Anyway, this is gonna be a close game. Okay, now I'm gonna stop talking too much about it. This is gonna be a really close game. Shadur's going to light it up when he needs to. I think Nebraska's defense is going to be able to force him into tough third downs because of their lack of run game, how much bigger and more physical we are as a team on the line. Yeah, so we're going to definitely put Shadur in some third downs that are really going to matter. I do believe in our DBs enough. I think they're going to get burned here or there. I think Tommy Hill's a good corner. I'm not sure about the other side. I know they were big about Bly Hill, but I don't know if he's going to be back by then. He hurt his patella and his knee. They're going to have some other young corners out there that could get burned, or Malcolm Hartzog, who is good in some ways, but I mean, 1v1 coverage, I'm not sure. Some of the safeties we have experience, but we're going to get burned here or there by Colorado. It is what it is. I believe in our offense being able to do enough. I think we win by 1 score against Colorado and go to 2-0. So there you go. I think we win by 1 score. I think we have to stop Shadur in the fourth quarter when it matters. I think our defense will be able to, because I think Colorado has they just have more inconsistency and instability as a program right now than Nebraska does, based on what we saw the back half of their season, because that was a dumpster fire that we just saw them. And we were too. We were bad the last 4 games too. But I mean, yikes. So Nebraska 2-0. They beat Colorado. Everyone's feeling great, right? Northern Iowa comes to town. They've given Iowa tough games in the past. They've given Iowa State tough games in the past. They're a decent FCS program. They're respectable. I would say they're just about the same as UTEP in terms of what they can do on the field. I think Nebraska wins this game. There's no way I would pick them to lose. I mean, Northern Iowa just way less talent. I know they've had the same coach there for like 20 years. It's just, especially with the transfer portal, a lot of the best players from that school just get picked off anyway. So it's like, yeah, they might have a good year here and there, but they're not even a top 15 FCS program, I think, recently. So Nebraska wins that. Illinois is the game number 4. We're 3-0 going into the Big Ten play. That'd be awesome if we are. Illinois is a team. I think they were pretty good 2 years ago in 2022 with the Brown twins, with what they had going on there. We saw Nebraska kind of bully them at times last year. We also had some insane like 4th down stops at midfield and on the goal line to force Illinois out of points last year. That was an interesting game to. It was a terrible football game to watch. Actually, Nebraska could have won by like 30 and was just fumbling right and left in the 4th quarter. Illinois, I think they got a solid team in terms of like their ability to get to a bowl game. I think their peak is get to a bowl. Like last year, they went 5-7. Luke Altmaier's back at QB for them. Caden Fegan will probably be their top running back. He's like 6'3", 230. He's like a big guy. He's not super fast, but solid running back. They still got Josh McCray as well. Pat Bryant is their best receiver. They have some other young guys at receiver too. They lost Tip Reeman to the draft, and their defense is all right. Nothing crazy. I think they had a better defense 2 years ago. Nebraska should win this game. It's at home. Illinois, I would say, they're kind of being the same team they were last year in some ways. They lose Isaiah Williams, who was their best player on offense, probably the best player on their team last year. Nebraska probably wins by 2 scores. That's my take. I think, Brett Bielema has given Nebraska trouble in the past. I think we have the right coach and the right scheme right now with how big we are on the lines to win that game comfortably. Could, Illinois make it close? Yeah, I mean, Altmaier is a decent QB, but he got benched last year for Paddock, who ended up coming in and being better than him towards the end of the season. So I think they don't even really have like a quarterback that I really am scared of in any way. So 4-0 Nebraska. We beat Illinois. That's 4 straight home games. First road game will be at Purdue. I think Purdue is going to be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten this year. I'm not even going to dance around it. Like, I think they're going to be pretty bad in terms of the conference as a whole. Hudson Card is probably like their best player at QB. I think he's pretty dang good. He had good moments at Texas. He had some moments last season. But other than that, I think their coach is in over his head. I don't think he really is ready to be a Big Ten head coach right now. I know he was a good DC at Illinois, but they don't really bring a ton back that's impressive. They got Reggie Love coming in as a transfer from Illinois. He's all right. Devin Mockabee runs like a deer, and he's an okay running back, but they didn't really use him that much last season. And then their best receivers, they brought in some transfers, and they got Cam Brown from UCLA. They brought in, he's probably their best one. And then they got Jaden Dixon-Veal, who I think he caught a touchdown against Nebraska, his only touchdown last year in the whole season. And other than that, I mean, they lost some of their better players in the portal on defense. It's like they're just not going to be that great next year. I think they're kind of in the same boat as Illinois and some other teams. Like they're just trying to get to 6 wins next year, and maybe they improve towards like the back half of their season when they get some of their guys some more experience. But they're really banking on transfers and some other people to replace what they lost in the portal. Nebraska's going to win this game. I mean, Purdue is going to be one of the worst teams in the conference, and I don't think we're going to be one of the worst teams. So I really like what we brought in on offense with Raiola and some of those other transfers we have. I know I talked about the roster we have in my last video, so I don't want to like overly harp on that. But I think we're just better. You saw last year, we were not a good football team, and we, without fumbling the ball, we don't even give up a single point to them. So yeah. The Rutgers game, that's going to be game number 6, and it's also homecoming for Nebraska. So I know Gavin Wimsatt just transferred out at Rutgers because they announced that Minnesota transfer Ethan Kaliakmanis is now their starter. They just announced him in the spring, like this guy's our starter, which is kind of interesting. They did that. I think Wimsatt was a decent game manager, but not a guy who's going to beat teams with his arm. And he's kind of fast, but probably not I mean, he's just an average dual threat quarterback, is what he is. And Kaliakmanis had some good moments last year for Minnesota. I thought they were a little bit Minnesota kind of rushed pushing him out of the I don't know. They brought in Brosmer, and then Kaliakmanis pretty much just dipped out of there. We don't play Minnesota this year, unfortunately. I thought we had a good little fan rivalry with them. I think both fan bases are pretty cordial in Nebraska and Minnesota. Unfortunately, we don't play them. But he's going to be over at Rutgers. Kaliakmanis is the QB now there. They had a decent year last year. I think they even won 8 or 9 games. They beat Miami in a bowl game. They had a solid team. This is Nebraska's. I mean, if we're honest with what Rutgers has coming back and their resume from last year, this is their toughest game of our first 7. Now, I'm not super impressed with Rutgers besides their defense. I think their defense is impressive, but they got Kyle Monungai and Jashawn Benjamin at running back. Those guys are going to probably be their best 2 offensive players. Benjamin was a freshman last year. He showed some flashes. Monungai, I don't know. I think he was just under 1,000 yards. I could be wrong. He was their number 1 running back, though. But then a wide receiver, they really don't have a whole lot. Christian Dremel was their best wide receiver. He's like a slot receiver. He showed some flashes last year, had a big touchdown against Michigan. But besides that, I mean, they don't really have any impressive tight ends. They don't have any like big time wideouts that are really worth mentioning. They got some transfers. They got some guys who never really played. They just don't have an impressive offense. And with this game being at home for Nebraska, with our defense probably, I mean, I don't know if our defense is going to be quite as good as they were last year, but I think it'll be pretty close. So I think we'll be able to shut down Rutgers enough. And then our offense with what we have should be able to win by maybe 10 or 13 points against Rutgers. If not more. We've really had Rutgers' number, even in the times where we had close games against them in the past, which I think was only maybe once or twice. We've really, I mean, I think we're 4-5-0 against them in the Big Ten, and I don't really see that changing. I think we will win again, 6-0 Nebraska. I mean, look, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, these are not like high, these are mid to bottom tier Big Ten teams. So I think Nebraska is about to have their best season since I was a kid, 2016. So yeah. Anyway, the next game, so we have a bye week and then we have Indiana. Now, Indiana, I believe, is our trap game of the year. Even though we have a bye before, I still see it as our trap game because you can't ignore the back half of the Nebraska schedule. I'm just going to list it off. We'll get to them. At Ohio State versus UCLA, at USC versus Wisconsin, at Iowa. Those are the 5 toughest games we have. You could argue that Rutgers is maybe better than UCLA. I would say UCLA's defense and also how tough the Pac-12 was last year. I think UCLA maybe is a little better, maybe a little worse. We'll see. But still, just in terms of like brand value, it's, UCLA, like they're coming to Lincoln, like people are excited for that, right? And then the other 4 teams I mentioned are probably the top 4 opponents they have on the schedule. So that's a big part of the season. And at Indiana, the week before they go at Ohio State, it's a trap game. And I know Indiana is probably going to be one of the lesser teams in the Big Ten, but we're not great either. I think Indiana's tough to have right before Ohio State because it's a road game. We're going to be thinking about Ohio State, especially if we're 6-0. Now, I do think that having the bye week before is going to help us. And Indiana has a lot of transfer stuff they're doing. Like they brought in a lot of running backs, have a lot of running backs leaving. Donovan McCulley is going to be a really good wide receiver for them. I think he's probably a top 5 wide receiver, if not higher in the league. Nathan Rourke, or however you say his last name, is coming in as a sixth-year senior from Ohio. He's from Canada originally. Him and his older brother were QBs at Ohio for like 10 years straight. I don't even know how long, but too damn long. So it's gonna be a close game, really close. Like this is the one. This is the game where you're like, you see that we have a freshman QB, and you see that like we got some things we got to work out. Like we're not gonna be a flawless football team. Yes, we're gonna be able to win our close games to get to this point. Um, it's gonna be kind of similar to that 2016 Indiana game where we were undefeated and we needed like a lot of things to go right for us to win that game, like a pick six, Brennan Riley catching a circus pass off someone's back, Stanley Morgan catching a sideline across the field catch, and that could have been picked, except two Indiana players ran into each other. So Stanley just took off for like 40 yards, and we ended up closing out that game on an Aaron Williams pick. Yeah, that kind of game, it's gonna be exactly like that. And Indiana's gonna find a way to score some points, make us all worried. We're gonna find a way to just do whatever we need to win this game at Indiana. I think we're gonna find a way. That's gonna be really close. Maybe even overtime, but we're gonna find a way to be 7-0 going into Ohio State. And is this best case scenario predictions? Yes, this is best case scenario. Nebraska being 7-0 going to Ohio State is definitely a best case scenario situation. What more could you ask for? Now this is where stuff runs out. Ohio State, in my opinion, is going to be the best team in the Big Ten. Bringing in Quinshon Judkins, who probably is the best running back in college football next year, besides Jalen Milrow, who plays QB. Just kidding. I just like to throw that in there because that guy's jacked. But anyway, back to Judkins, and they still have Travion Henderson. They got some good freshman wideouts. They got that. Oh, he's from Washington, the state of Washington. What's his last name? Emeka Egbuka is still there. They're bringing in Will Howard from Ohio State, who's not like great, but he's a good quarterback. And their defense, they bring back almost everybody from last year. They have a bunch of guys who are probably going to get drafted next year. They're stacked. There's not more for me to say. Like, they are stacked and they're going to beat us. It's at Ohio State, and they're going to be the best team in the Big Ten, in my opinion. There's no way I'm picking us. We're not winning that game. I would be happy to see us make it close. It's possible. I mean, we saw Adrian Martinez go into Ohio State as a freshman, and we nearly beat him that year when we were pretty bad, 2018. I guess that team was streaky towards the back half of the season, but yeah, no. At this point in time, I mean, we're 3.5 months away from the season starting. And yeah, there's no way. 7-1. 7-1 going in, back home to play UCLA, our 9th game of the season. UCLA, I'll pull up the roster. I got the rosters pulled up with not like the walk-ons and other no-name players, but I kind of have everything listed out on my phone with guys that are going to play for each team, kind of rostered it out like a depth chart. UCLA, they got Ethan Garber's back, senior quarterback. TJ Harden's going to be a good running back for them. I should have looked at how many guys they have returning on defense. Still have Chardonnay, their best wide receiver. So I'm not that impressed with what UCLA has. I think they won their bowl game last year against Boise State. I'm not super impressed with them, though. I really never have been, even when I think they had a pretty good year 2 years ago with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. The UCLA and then the USC, those games being back-to-back is really interesting. All these West Coast schools coming in, it just makes the Big Ten just way more interesting because thank God we're not stuck in the Big Ten West anymore and being just mediocre. I mean, not only were we stuck in the Big Ten West, we should have been deported to the Mountain West, the whole division. Anyway, I'll get back to UCLA. I think we win this game. Of the two LA schools we play, this is the home game. I'm not super impressed with UCLA's offense. They didn't put up a ton of points last year. Their defense was the strong part of their team. The fact that Chip Kelly would have been the year one head coach coming into the Big Ten and said, nah, I'm out. I'm gonna go be the OC at Ohio State, which is gonna be super easy, by the way. And you guys can just go figure it out. And so I can't remember who UCLA hired. I should know this stuff. I'm should know this stuff. But um I think the fact that they have a brand new coach coming in and the roster is not that impressive, I think Nebraska gets the win here, and goes to 8-1. So 3 games left on the season. Nebraska's 8-1 already. I mean, obviously they locked up a bowl spot, first half of the season. And at this point, we're playing to go to the Big Ten title at this point. If we're 8-1 going into the last 3, we got USC, Wisconsin, Iowa. I mean, that's pretty great. I mean, that's more than we could have asked for in a lot of seasons that we've seen. So they have another bye week and they go at USC. And I have notes for this podcast and I have each game listed out as what I already think is going to be a win or a loss. This one I put to be decided because I still don't know how I feel. I'm kind of torn. I would love to see Nebraska go into LA, which I think is, look, I don't want to sound too biased. Like I love America and Americans, but I would never live in LA. That it looks so dang crowded and just I would love to live anywhere Western America, except like I'll just cut out like most of California. San Diego's nice, but like I just don't like LA as a place. I just think I don't like places that are mainstream and just I think they're kind of lame. That's just me. So I'd love to see us go in there and beat them. And they're fair weather fans that most of their fans don't even care. But to be honest, I just think it would be too much to ask for right now. I think Lincoln Riley, yeah, he's one of the best offensive minds in college football. He's bringing in Jaden Mayava from UNLV. He had a good year last year. UNLV had their best season in a long time. And they have some other transfers they brought in. Let's see here. Joquavius Marks, senior running back from Mississippi State. I think he's underrated. He's a pretty good player. They got some other young running backs from the state of Texas. Zachariah Branch is a really good receiver. They got some other guys at wideout that are, worth mentioning. I'll get back to what I think is going to happen. Really close game, I think. Down to the wire. At this point, Nebraska has won multiple one-score games to get to 8-1. They would have to. I think Colorado's won, Indiana on the road, UCLA probably. Some low-scoring potential game. I mean, just grind out games that they've found a way to win this year so far. And I think when you do that, especially with what Nebraska's done in close games the last several years, I mean, the more close games you have, the more chances you have to flip the other way. To be honest, on the road, I think USC has got quite a bit of talent, even though a lot of it got misused on defense with Alex Grinch being their DC for a while. I know that he's fired. My biased fan self says we win, but with what I've seen Nebraska do in close games, I can't say we just keep winning all these close games that I see us playing. I think we lose to a USC. We got an old team. We got some veterans. We also have a young team in some ways, and I think this is a game where that shows. Yeah, I'd say we lose 8-2 going into the last 2 games. Maybe they win this game and they lose a different one, but this is just how I see it so far. Obviously, injuries and other factors are going to play a role in November, and so who knows? This doesn't really even matter, but it's just opinion. I'll take 8-2 going into the last 2 games, though. The next one, last home game versus Wisconsin. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what it is. We just don't beat Wisconsin. We don't do it. We just straight up don't do it. Like last year, we played Wisconsin overtime, and they just were a little bit better. Like we had a really good start to that game, but you could just tell Wisconsin was a little bit better towards the end, and they won. Wisconsin in 2020, shoot, I'm trying to remember. 2021 was really close. Nebraska lost. 2020, they ducked us. 2022, that we had like a 1-point loss. 2019 was relative. I mean, it wasn't like super close. 2018, Trying to remember. Yeah, we have a lot of close games with them. Even when we're bad, we like give them a good game. We haven't been ran out of the building like Melvin Gordon did multiple times. But hey, um, I think Wisconsin, some people think they're not going to be that great this year. I think they're going to be pretty good. I think they're one of the top 5 teams in the league. Um, they're either going to have, let's see, who they're going to have start at QB. It's either going to be Tyler Van Dyke or Braden Locke, who I think both are good options at QB. And then Tawi Walker is coming in as a running back. He's a transfer from Oklahoma. I know he had some off the field issues with them, but I still think, I mean, they got him, Jackson Acker, Ches Malusi, who has the worst name in college football. I've said that before. They got some running backs. They have more solidified running backs than we do. And I even think their wide receivers are pretty good. Will Pauling, Bryson Green, Tyrell Henry, some other guys in there too. I think their offense is just as impressive as ours in terms of what the roster's looking like talent wise. And their defense is probably, I mean, this is like a really even matchup. Unfortunately, I see a trend here where I think we win close games to start out the season, but we, just like last year, I think we lose close games to close out the year. Now I'll get to the Iowa game soon. I think we lose to Wisconsin, go to 8-3. The only home loss I see us having, because the other 2 losses I predicted were road losses. So unfortunately, yeah, I think our streak against Wisconsin of losing and continues. Yeah, so 8-3 going into the Iowa game. And if you've ever listened to me before, if I will never pick Iowa to beat us because they have the most boring offense and the most boring head coach. And besides their defense, they have nothing of value besides a game managing offense. And Caleb Johnson's pretty good, I will say. He's a really good running back for them. That's the only guy I fear on their offense. Everyone else, mid to bad. Their O-line's always good at run blocking. So yeah. Not even gonna give that game. Like, we're gonna beat Iowa because this is Run the Damn Ball. You think I'm gonna pick Iowa? Like, come on. So yeah, beat Iowa to close out the year on the road. 9-3 is what I see Nebraska doing this year. Which is, look, that is the best season since 2016 in terms of regular season. We would take that. Probably better than 2016, actually. I mean, we beat Iowa to close out the year. We beat UCLA. Now we lose to the good teams on our schedule. I don't think USC is necessarily a good team, but I think they're a talented team. They'll probably be around like 8-4, maybe better, maybe worse. That's what I see from USC. But yeah, Wisconsin probably the best team in like the old Big Ten West area. We don't play Minnesota. Ohio State's on the schedule. They're tough. We don't play Michigan. We don't play Michigan State or Penn State or Maryland. Those are all tough teams, I think, that we were dodging this year. So 9-3, Nebraska, 2024. That's pretty good. Now, before I get into some other Big Ten predictions, I'll give some of those right now, what I think is going to happen with the conference, just with how things will shape out with the Big Ten title game and how I think certain teams will do. Some hot takes I got. I will say this, two uniform takes. If you ever follow me on Twitter, you know I have tons of uniform opinions for college football teams. Whoa, I just remembered this off the bat. Houston is bringing back their Houston Oiler themes. The Houston Cougars, of course, are bringing back their Houston Oiler themed uniforms this year. They announced, even though the NFL / Tennessee Titans didn't want them to and told them so. But screw the NFL. I don't really care that much about the NFL. I don't know if I ever said that. I love college football, and that's kind of it. NFL is it's gotten too big. Okay, but yeah. Titans, boring. You don't even wear the Oiler uniforms that much. Maybe they did one year with Derrick Henry recently. I think they did, actually. But still, I mean, you're in Tennessee, and that's Houston. I think Houston should be able to do it. It's freedom of whatever you want to do. Art. Football uniforms are art, dude. Okay, I'll calm down. But 2 uniform takes I have for Nebraska. One, the Illinois game, week 4 for Nebraska is actually going to be, and I know that our sellout streak's okay, I'm not gonna say it, but it's not that big of a deal is how I'll put it. I don't think it matters, but the fans love to eat it up sometimes. So, because what else have we had for the last 8 years? Versus Illinois is our 400th sellout of the season, or sorry, not the season, but of Nebraska football history. So since 1962, Nebraska sold out every football game, even though boosters have bought tickets when we had to make sure we kept the sellout. But and I mean, if Nebraska's going 9-3 or better, they're selling out the stadium. Okay. Speaking of the stadium, I have more hot takes actually, but anyway. So here's my 2 uniform opinions for Nebraska this year. I really like how classic our uniform looks. The stripes are really skinny on the pants. They look really good. I think our pant stripes look the best they have ever looked in 2022 when Mickey Joseph took over and they decided to make the pant stripes, a thing. And those ones were beautiful. If you look at the uniforms from the back half of 2022 and the pant stripes are perfect on Nebraska's uniforms. They went even skinnier on the legs. Like we look like we're 1971 Johnny Rogers with how skinny those pant stripes are now on the uniforms that we saw from last year because Adidas kind of remodeled. They took the Adidas word off the jersey and just the 3 stripes only are now on the jersey and on the pants. So kind of interesting. I think that stuff's always fun to look at how it changes over time. It looks like a classic Nebraska uniform. It's either, red and white or white and red, with the pants and jersey. Now, game 4 is the 400 sellout. So we got to bring a throwback uniform. And I've seen images of uniforms from the 50s and 60s Nebraska has had. Nebraska actually wore a red helmet with a gray face mask and a red jersey for their home uniform in the 1950s. And I think it'd be really cool if we brought that back. Now, it was like maybe a couple of years and they switched to having a white helmet in the 60s. That's kind of the Bob Devaney era. But look, it would look really cool bringing in a red helmet, like a scarlet helmet with numbers and then gray face. I think the gray face mask always looks best on Nebraska. I think it looks better than the red one sometimes. We saw that against Oklahoma in 2022. Would love to see the gray face mask make a comeback, and then just one red stripe down the pants. That's my uniform take. What we should do for a throwback uniform against Illinois? I think we will bring one out, being that it is the 400 sellout. So yeah, that's my uniform take there. And then I'd like to see us wear all white for one game because we haven't done that since like the Mike Riley era. And I think the Iowa game is a fun time to do that. I mean, why not go white out on Black Friday at Iowa? Go all white. Why not? Just see what it looks like, especially with how skinny those pant stripes are. It could look really cool. So that's my take on uniforms. I don't want to see those black ones come back. I know they were cool with the black shirt logo on the shoulder. Unfortunately, we lost both times we wore those, and it just reminds me of Scott Frost era. So we could maybe do them again, but let's start winning first. Maybe get to a bowl and then we could whip them out, right? So that's my uniform takes. I want to give my Memorial Stadium takes. I almost went on a rant on Twitter, but then I realized, you know what? I just don't care that much about throwing crap on Twitter all the time. And I really haven't been podcasting much, but want to say what I think about Nebraska Memorial Stadium, because I know they talked about renovating the South Stadium, and then, they want a concourse that goes all the way around on the second level of the stadium too. There's a bunch of stuff they want to do to renovate the stadium. They want to make it, instead of it being like 86 to 90,000, depending on how you want to fluctuate it, they want it to be closer to like 70 to 75,000. And I'm just going to give my opinions on all of that right now. Number 1, Nebraska is not a nice, cozy stadium. And it isn't meant to be that way. Okay? I don't want to sit in a nice cushioned seat and just sit there and watch the game. This is not the NFL. This is not Ole Miss. This is not some nice little, get together where we go tailgate and then we, maybe we go to the game for a little bit and we're comfy in our seats, but then we leave and then we come back maybe. But like, it's not a comfortable experience to stand in Memorial Stadium or sit, depending on how the game's going, for 3 to 4 hours. It's not meant to be that. It's never been that. And I don't think look, I want to stand for 3 to 4 hours, be obnoxious and yell. When I was in college, I wanted to throw fireball shooters. I'm too old to do that now. I'm more calm now. But I want to be obnoxious for 4 hours and just yell at the other team and just root for my team. And I want to have a Runza too, or Valentino's Pizza. And I want to stand as much as I can, especially if it's a big game. If we're playing Northern Iowa, sure, like I don't live in Nebraska anymore, but if I was at the game, I'd probably sit for that game for a bit, but it's not meant to be. It's like you stand on those long bleacher seats and you're going to be loud the whole game. Like it could be 2014 Miami, like whatever it is, like you are loud and it's like not like it could be wind coming, super cold. It could be September, 100 degrees. Like it's not meant to be a nice, cozy environment. That's not Memorial Stadium. Maybe for some people, maybe for the people that go sit in the boxes or whatever, but like I don't want my stadium to be that. And I know it's not my stadium, but like as a fan, I'm gonna give my opinion. I don't obviously I don't have to. I'm making decisions. I'm not doing that, but I think it should stay as is. Sure, if you want to make a concourse on the second level that goes all the way around so that it's easier to get from each side, great. I think that's cool. We can do that, but don't get rid of the amount of seats. Like if you put chair back seats, you're getting rid of seats. If you demolish North and South Stadium and try to make it all cozy with seats, we're going to be down to like 65,000, maybe 70 at most. And if we start winning, like we could, imagine if Matt Rule, say he's at Nebraska for the next 8 years, roughly. Okay. And they start winning. Like we're talking Bo Pelini level winning. Okay. 9-3, 10-2, which in a 9 conference game scenario that we're in now, and with how competitive the Big Ten is going to be, I'll take Bo Pelini records right now. Yeah, we want to launch into playoff territory, which we could do if we go 10-2 with how the playoff is going to be 14 to 16 teams. But like, look, if we're winning, it's going to fill up, and you're going to be leaving people outside who want to be in if you go down to 70K. Okay, that's my take. Don't do it. Don't make us a cozy stadium because we're not. That's not what it's about. Anyway, that's my take. My brother and I have talked heavily about that, and we agree. Um, it's not meant to be a nice, cozy arena. It's meant to be Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska. You're gonna be loud, and you're gonna be standing. Hopefully, maybe I'm old school. I probably am, but that's my take on the stadium. What I think we should do with the stadium long term. I know Troy Dannon, the new AD, is not really in a rush to do anything with it. I know when he took the job, he didn't even know that it was a project that they were trying to work on and fundraise for. I even think part of the reason Trev left was because he wanted to do it so badly and he wasn't getting the money for it. And he was like, well, this is tough. I'm going to dip out of here. I also think Trev was kind of a politician in terms of his personality, which look, I actually still like Trev a lot. I think he was really good for Nebraska when he was there, and now he's at A&M. He's going to do good things there. I'm rooting for him as a person, but I always kind of got, I know a lot of ADs are probably like this. I always got like politician type vibes from him. I'm not trying to say that's a bad thing. I think some people are just very professional and straight shooters in the way that they communicate and are just very cordial or whatever you want to put on it. I'm just very like all over the place. I just say whatever the heck's in my mind. I don't care. That's the only way I know how to be. So I am very different than those kind of people. But yeah, I don't actually mind that he's gone. I think Troy Dannon's a good ad. And with Troy Dannon coming in, I think I don't know where he went to college, but he's from Iowa. Would not be surprised if we start scheduling some Big 8 opponents in our future schedules, like Iowa State, Kansas State, Kansas, because we have Troy Dannon, who probably values those regional rivalries more. I know Matt Rule doesn't necessarily want to play non-conference Power 5, Power 4 games as much now. With how competitive the Big Ten is. That's one thing I very much disagree with Matt Rule on. But anyway, I think I've kind of rambled there. That's my take on the stadium. I don't want them to touch it. The only thing I'd want them to change is, look, if you want to make it a 360 concourse in the upper level and the lower level, I guess too. I think it was the lower level they might have been talking about. Great, but don't take away seats. We need to keep it around 80 to 90K, like at least 80, if not more. So anyway. That's kind of just, I've had those Nebraska football thoughts on my brain for a while, so I just want to get them out there. Let's jump over to the Big Ten where we were earlier. Predictions I have for the Big Ten as a whole, and maybe I'll do a Big Ten preview video later this summer. But yeah, first things first, I think the best two teams in the Big Ten are probably, I know Michigan's the defending national champion, but they lost a lot of people to the draft. A lot. And they cheated last year too. Everyone knows it. And they got away with it. Now, actually, they're bringing in QB communications for offense defense for this season. So that's going to be back this year. So now you can have someone in the headset from in the booth talking to your QB and one defensive player now going forward, which they didn't have until now. The NFL's been doing that for like maybe 20, 30 years. I don't know how long, but so they have that now, which is cool, which means Michigan can't cheat like that anymore. But I'm going to go ahead and say I think Oregon and Ohio State are the best two teams in the Big Ten. I think Oregon has a really good first year in the Big Ten. They had a really good team last year. They just lost two close games to Washington, two games they could have won. I think they're a really good team. And they got a lot of guys coming back from last year. Dylan Gabriel's in at quarterback. I know he's kind of annoying. He's like 24 years old playing QB, but look, he's really good. So I think it's them, Ohio State. I think Ohio State's the best team. I think they win the Big Ten. I think Michigan goes 9-3 this year. They play Texas in week 2. I think Texas beats them. I think Ohio State beats them. I think Oregon beats them. And so then they go 9-3. They'll have the defense. I think they'll have enough on offense with Donovan Edwards to go 9-3. They just lost a lot of wide receivers in the portal too. Yeah, that's what I see from them this year. So that's my hot take on Michigan. I know some people may already agree with that. Michigan State, I think, has a good first year with Jonathan Smith. I think they go to a bowl with first year coach for Jonathan Smith. I even live with someone named Jonathan Smith. If you're listening, shout out John. Anyway, yeah, Michigan State. What was I going to say about that? I've just been riffing for a while. Jonathan Smith did well at Oregon State with, they're kind of it's like doing really well at Iowa State. It's just less resources. You're the smaller school in the state, but he did a lot of good things there. They had some good seasons with him. I think he's going to be able to do good things with Michigan State too. Penn State is the one team I think is just not trending in the right direction. That's my other thing. I think they only get maybe 8 wins, like at most 9. I just don't think Penn State's that good. Drew Aller hasn't proved that he's that great. All they got on offense is Nicholas Singleton and Kayshawn Allen are their running backs, and then Keandre Lambert-Smith just left in the portal. Malik McLean just left in the portal. Their wide receivers are not that impressive. Their defense is probably the better part of their team, and they've lost some guys in the portal from their defense too. It's like maybe they weren't great guys. I should probably check on that, but I just don't believe in Penn State. I think they already were the number 3 team in the Big Ten East for a while. They have a good running game, but I don't believe that they're really in striking distance to win the conference this year. I think they lose to West Virginia week 1. Not that impressed with their roster. Not that impressed with what they did last year. Yeah, they were pretty good last year, but that's not good enough to win the conference. So I think they only get like 8 wins this year. And James Franklin probably going to be on the hot seat if he doesn't get them to 9 to 10 wins. I think he's a really good coach. They haven't really won in the portal, and they also haven't brought in the best guys to, bring them to, say, Ohio State, Michigan level. So yeah. And then I think that's kind of wrapping up what I think of the Big Ten so far this year. Maybe I'll do another, video about how I think each team's going to do in the conference. I know I want to do that for the Big 12 because that's just such an interesting league to me. But yeah, 9-3 Nebraska this year. I'll go ahead and write it down on my screen. 9-3. That's my prediction. Is it, a little optimistic? Yeah, I think it is a little bit. You could probably say they lose 2 games that I said they won. There's some Husker fans who I would even say they would probably think we could do better, and I think we could, but 9-3 is what I got, and that is damn good for year 2 with Matt Rule. And I'll go ahead and the next video I want to do, I have a lot of takes on how we can fix college football from a structural standpoint. Oh, I have a lot of opinions there. I think there's a way that they could structurally realign college football that could make it a great sport again. I don't think it's great right now. I think it's okay. Pretty good. Could be a lot better. And there's a way that they could fix things. I would say, there's a lot we can do. Restructure conferences, football only conferences as well is what we need to do because I don't want us sending Cal and Stanford volleyball to play in Miami for volleyball. That is bonkers. What are we doing? Um, anyway, don't want to go too much on that right now. I'm gonna do a whole video on how we can fix college football structurally. It would benefit Nebraska too, because we are in the middle of an intercontinental conference right now, is what we're in. So yeah. Don't want to over harp on things too much. That's probably everything. I'm excited for the season. I know we're several months away. I mean, this is May 5th that I'm recording this. But yeah, this is how I mean, for Nebraska to 9-3, these are some of the things that need to happen. I'll just close on this. Raiola needs to have a big year and needs to be the guy. I already think he is the guy. He needs to have a big year. Running backs need to be healthy because we already have two running backs coming in the season who had season-ending injuries last year. And I'm not thrilled with our running back room, but I'm happy with it. I think it's enough to get us to 9 wins. Wide receiver room, I think we're stacked with talent. We just have guys that need to prove what they got. And tight ends, same thing. O-line is, they were probably the most improved group last year on offense, except it didn't matter because everybody else was kind of holding them back. They just need to continue on the track they're on. Defense, we lost some. I mean, we didn't have anyone drafted, but like Phelan Sanford was really good. Quentin Newsome, I thought was really good. Luke Reimer, even though he didn't get drafted, and I don't even know if he made an NFL roster yet as an undrafted player. I think it may have been like because of how much he's played in the past several. He's played like 4 years as a starter. Just has a lot of mileage as a player. We'll see if he's able to make a roster, but we just had some really good players for years on our defense leave. Now, I think we're going to have enough to come back to replicate what we had last year. I don't think we're going to be quite as good on defense, but I think we'll be at best just as good as we were. I think we'll see. I'm worried about our pass defense. That's what I'll say. But other than that, excited for the season. We need our defense to replicate last year. We need the offense to improve a lot, and then we can get to 9 to wins, maybe even 10. Get to a bowl game. We'll see what we can do. Yeah, that's what I got to say. I don't even know what. I mean, 14, 16 team playoff. This year we got 12-team playoff, right? If Nebraska can go 10-2, maybe they're in striking distance. But yeah, I think at 9-3 they're probably out, and then they're in a bowl, probably playing the SEC or something. Maybe we'll get a rematch with Texas or OU. Actually, I think Texas is going to make the playoffs. I'm going to go ahead and say that Texas is loaded with talent this year. They're stacked. They'll probably make the playoff, in my opinion. But maybe we'll play OU again. Maybe we'll play another SEC school. That'd be fun. Anyway, that's it. Run the damn ball. We're going to a bowl this year. I keep saying that. But yeah, thanks for listening. That's everything. I can't keep talking anymore.